on social media right after the session. Right after the session, just make sure that you subscribe to his channel and watch some of his other videos and go to his Facebook page as well. And he's also completed certification in many of the old Tamil scripts, like Tamil Brahmi, Vatalthu, and Grandam. So if you're interested, this is somebody that you should definitely reach out to as well. One final thing that I want to say is that just looking, had I not walked you through that technical introduction of him, you would have thought that he's an archaeologist. By the end of this, you would have thought he's an archaeologist or he's an architect or whatever. But I think this is something that is just his passion. More being than being a professional, he's actually somebody that is so passionate about what he does. So, Mr. Sivasankar sir, we are very, very glad to have you here. Yeah, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Hemant. And that is an interesting introduction. Thanks for an nice introduction on this. Basically, I should thank the team in Toronto, especially Jay, Ranga, and Hemant for introducing to this opportunity. This gives us one more opportunity to spread the awareness about our wonderful heritage to a worldwide audience, and so that people understand that there are so many things which you can look forward to in Indian temples. That is the objective of this series. Primarily, before we started, I should thank the team for taking the pains to arrange it and then bringing a fairly good audience. I see a fairly good collection of people here, and my old friend and connection Vairam Sarathi is also there. A lot of other new people, but I see very excited faces, and then I am definitely sure that this is going to be an interesting session, and I look forward to the question and answer session after this. So to start the session, let me share the screen. To give a brief about this sequence. Yeah. Hello. When we were having the initial discussion about this with Hemant and Jay, they wanted to do a series on the awareness, primarily on what all you can see in a temple as a series. So today we are going to start with the first session on the overview. So I will start with a brief 30,000 feet kind of an overview from a plane on what is a temple, what all we can see, what all you can explore. So this is what is going to be the scope for the next 45 minutes. And after that, in the next following scenario, having done some excitement and having sensitized you to different things available, we can have 3 or 4 focused sessions on some aspects of the temple which you are interested in. So what I look forward to you from the audience side is that once you go through the slides, once you go through the presentation, give us feedback on what areas excite you about a temple and how much you would like to know about a particular aspect. That will help us in fine-tuning the next 3 sessions to your interest and your audience. So that is the request I am making upfront, so that as you go through it, you also take notes or observe which is the areas which are of interest to you, and then we will customize the next sessions according to that. This is primarily audience-driven, on-demand kind of a presentation where this is fine-tuned for your preferences and your interests. If many of you feel that sculptures is a very interesting area, then we can go deeper into sculptures. Like that, this is the ocean. So this is where which area we want to swim in the ocean is our direction. We have the boat, We have the captain and we have enough supplies, and then we can go anywhere. But which direction we can choose? This is the basics with which I started. Let me share the screen for beginning the presentation. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, we're able to.
Okay. So today, the concept what I am pushing through is how to view a temple. Okay, you are already viewing a temple, but what you view and what you register are two different things. Normally, people go to a temple. What is the normal things? You go and have a darshan of the Lord, and then do things, and then we are sometimes we are happy that yes, I had done my duty. And the duty is complete when you get the prasada and you have it immediately, either laddu or something, and then the job is done. So straight away you come back and then you have so many other things to do, and then you rush back, get your chappals and then take away. But there are so many other things which you can see in a temple. This is where we are trying to actually talk about how to see. And then when you say view different things which are not visible to you, which you are not at all seeing. Your entrance is focused on the deity and then going back out of the entrance. So that is the objective of these sessions. Here today, we are going to have a bird's eye view or a 30,000 kind of a view of a temple and see what are all possible in a brief nutshell. Then in the next 2-3 sessions, we'll go little more deeper into each aspect and then see how much is that in detail and what are the things by looking at a temple, what all you can talk, what all new things you can learn about this. What you are seeing is an aerial view which even the builder of the temple would not have visualized. This is the Tanjavur big temple in Tamil Nadu, one of the grandest, the biggest temple of Dravida architecture style in South India, the highest and the tallest, largest temple. So this is how it looks from the top. So you can see that there is this is a complex. It contains a big temple and then so many mandavas and then gopuras and all these things. So what you people normally do is enter straight away, go to this, have a darshan, come out and then go through like this. And then there is a prasadam stall here, buy something and then go out. Their focus will be to get the chapel stand here and get back their chapel and then they're happy. So instead of it, if you look through these areas and observe what are the subsidiary temples available, how they are structured, and then is all this constructed in a single structure or whether it has been constructed over different periods. For example, this might be constructed during 10th century, this might be 11th century, and this might be during Maratha period and 12th century, 14th century. And different deities would have been installed in different times. And then there are so many mandavas or structures around here used for different purposes. So this is all we can observe and get to know about temples in a different way. So that is the objective of this session. Before we go into details of this, let us think about the current scenario where take a typical city or a village in India. or for that matter, even in US or in continental US or Canada, there is a school which is in a different place. So you need to go there and then brave the snow and then somehow go to the school, or we need to ensure that the kids done so many things and then go to the school. Hospital is in a different place. We need to go to that. Theaters as a concept, as a old concept, is we had to go to the theaters to watch. Now with the Netflix and other things, that concept is gone. Library, different areas. And court was there in a different location. So for going to every location, you need to catch a bus or take a car or take a public transport and then commute to all these things. And banks, totally different places. And meeting grounds, wherever community hall or a convention hall or thing, it will be different. So in a typical city or a town, all this will be spread over in multiple locations. But if you see in the 11th or 10th century, 13th century, 14th century time of thing, where temple building was in peak condition, this is the only place where all these things used to function. The temples used to have the school in the campus, and then there used to be medicinal shop run by in the temple corridors. Temples had a treasury, and they were the local treasury, and then they gave loan to the needy of the particular town or village. And then this is where all your entertainment, dance, festival, and everything will be loaded in the mandavas. And then this contained a lot of books like palm leaves and other things. And then this is where the local court or panchayat or gram sabha used to convene in the mandapa. And this is where all your cases, disputes are disposed of it. And this is where maximum festival, all the festivals are cornered around the temples. Okay. So it was also the meeting place for many of the conventions and other things. Even when king visits, normally his court will be from the local temple where he will sit in the mandapa and he will listen to all the issues. Okay, this is what happened in medieval India in the 10th, 13th centuries, where the temples were in the fully developed, well-developed and the formalized form. So that is, in a sense, to a certain extent, I am happy that it is happening in continental US. If you go to and visit any US temple, modern US temple, okay, you can find that except these two functions, it's slowly getting more and more in as a community center where you can come there around relaxed around 10 o'clock, have darshan, and then have a brunch, puliyodara, rice, khichdi, sambar, idli, and then take some parcel for the night, and then meet friends, and then tie up and see what all garage sales are available. All these things are happening in temple premises. So, in a sense, what the temples achieved in the 10th, 12th centuries in India, I'm happy that the culture still continues in US. That is the one place I used to say that US is the only one place where this culture is still being inculcated as a community center for the Indian community, where the temple is a central place. So this is how you can view the temple. Now, next time when you visit any Indian temple, see how these functions were handled. And then when you read about the temples, you can explore how temples used to function in different areas and which areas were used for school or festivals or meeting grounds or library. Then you will understand that temple is not only for the abode of gods, it is a social institution by itself. Now, the objective of this session is primarily to bring awareness about the temple and particularly about second generation, younger generation, so that they are excited and then they are more interested to learn about temples. So this talk, I am deliberately making it far more lighter and simple so that it is absorbed by the youngsters. And then I am sure a lot of seniors and middle-aged people are there in this group. But please bear with me. We can go into little more details in the next following sessions. So when you talk about a temple, we saw the aspect of as a social center. Now, when you talk from the Puranic or from the Agamic or from the chakra or the yoga perspective, a temple can be visualized as normally I'm having references to South Indian temples, primarily because I'm from Chennai. But for North Indian temples have a slightly variations. So primarily, if you look at any Shiva temple, each component of the temple are akin to a possible linga or for a chakra, the human chakras. Okay, human body contains 6 chakras. That is the hypothesis in yoga. So they are mapping this to the human chakras. So your Gopuram or the entrance tower is something similar to a Sthula Linga. And the Dwajastamba is similar to your Dwaja Lingam or Tattvatma. And Balipida, the small pedestal where this is not for sacrificing animals or something. This is for sacrificing your greed, avarice, and all the bad that where you focus on that and then put them there and then go with pure thoughts into the temple and then may have darshan. That is the purpose of Balipida. It is not for foods or it is not for killing animals. Okay, so this is equivalent to Antaratma or Bhadralinga. And then you go into Adhikaranandi or whatever is the Vahana of the particular one. It is similar to Jivatma. And where you enter into the Maha Mandapa, the big enclosure where all the festivals, pujas happen. Then you go into the Sanctum. This is equal to a Mula Linga in the Garbhagraha. So if you go into the superstructure, this is called the Akantalinga, the superstructure or the Vimana or the pyramid structure on top of it. It is called Akantalinga. So this is how a temple is equivalent to various lingas and various components. This can also be visualized as equivalent to a god or a person lying down and mapped to the various chakras, the 6 major yoga chakras in the body can be mapped to the various components of the temple. So when you see about these components, this Mooladhara is similar to your Dwajastamba, and this is equal to your Adhisthana, and then Manipura is your Vagada Mandapa, and the Mahamandapa is Anahita, and then Visuddha is the throat kind of thing is here in this area, and your Anya Chakra is equal to the Mula Linga or the Garbhagraha. So this is how our ancestors have visualized the temple as like a human body, and then visualize the various chakras in line with the various buildings of the temple. So this is one way of looking at it. So next time when you see this, visualize and see what are the areas when we pray in particular areas, what are the benefits and what are the things you are going to do. That is what you should also explore. Then when you go to the next one, the same you can check up and see that this human body perfectly matches with the way the temples are set up. For example, I had taken a picture of Tanjore Big Temple. Primarily, I am using Tanjore Big Temple as an example here because this is the biggest one. It has got the most complex setup available in this area. So if you here see this, your Gopura here is equal to your feet, and then the Mandavas near, and navel is equal to the entrance Mandavas, and the Garbhagraha is like your Vimana. So this matches perfectly in the way we are visualizing humans and then the 6 chakras. This is one view. Next, when we talk about temples, there is a misconception. And when you look at temples, you will get confused. Too many buildings, too many things. But if you think of it, it is like your Lego toys. You have only 3 basic building blocks or building types. Okay. And there are variations, but you take any building, it will fall into any of these 3 basic types. One is the Vimana. Vimana in South Indian concept or the Shikara or superstructure or the Garbhagraha is where the god resides. When you look at the basic or subtle difference between the Abrahamic religions and Hinduism is that when you go to a temple or when you go to a church, it is primarily a place where you pray to God. So it is a community center. And then here, the concept is that when you talk about temples, the concept itself says this is where the God lives in various versions. The question is, how can a God live in 25 places? He is omnipresent and he can live everywhere. But this is where he lives and his presence or power is felt in a more visible way. So this Vimana, whenever it contains a god, that building or enclosure is called a Vimana. This is the definition which we use in South Indian terminology. In North India, whether you can use Garbhagraha or Sanctum or different names are there. So this Vimana is interestingly, it can be in square shape, circle, rectangle, or apsidal, different shape for different deities, different combination, different structures. Even for Vishnu, some temples are in apsidal, some temples are circular, some temples are square, depending on whether it's a standing or reclining pose. So the Vimana shape is something interesting which you need to observe next time when you go to a temple. Normally, this is a tower with a building. The Garbhagraham is there, and after that there are various tiers of the smaller Vimana structures, and then it is stacked into a big cupola. The cupola shape also varies, multiple design, multiple things, and there is enough interest on that. So when you start observing this, you find different variation, different combinations coming up, and it is an interesting geometrical exploration, and all your basic geometry, shapes, and other things you can apply it here. And particularly for kids, if you teach geometry with this one, they will be very easily able to absorb this. So this is one type of temple. So even if it contains a Vahana Mandapa where a Nandi is puja, or a Anjaneya enclosure with a tower where there is a god residing in, it is always called Vimana for the particular one. Now the next one is Mandavas. Here we see so many Mandavas for different things. Primarily, this is where the god comes out, and then there are so many pujas and other things happen, and the people have darshan. Normally, there are 2 types of Mandavas here. For when it is connected to a Garbhagraham, and then for puja and other things, the walls are closed. Okay. And there are other type of Mandavas here where the walls are open. This is primarily for functions, dances and everything, where it is an open mandapa. So this is the thing. So now, what is the difference between Vimana and Mandapa? There is no pyramid in South Indian structure. There is no pyramidical tower on top. But whereas when it goes to North Indian temples, even many Mandavas have pyramidical type of towers on top of it. So that is the difference. Since it is predominantly South Indian audience, I am going with the South Indian example. So this is two. There is a third variation, which is totally unique to South Indian or a Dravidian temple architecture, which is called Gopura. So this is the gateway to temple complex. And then it also has a pyramidical tower, and similar to Vimana, the top portion is almost similar, but the bottom is different. Instead of having three sides closed and one side open for Garbhagriha, it is a two side open wall. So this is the Gopuram you see here. There are two Gopurams here, and then one Vimana. Normal confusion for people is they mix it up, temple, Vimana, and Gopura. Temple is the entire complex, and Vimana is where the god lives. Mandapa is where the god comes in and people have a darshan. And Gopura is the gateway or tower security enclosure, which is typical to South Indian temples. We don't find it in the North Indian temples. In some of the temples in Khajuraho and Gujarat, we have the Torana, but it is at a fairly smaller level and it doesn't have multi-tier. It is only one Torana. So this is how next time when you see the different components of the temple and then use the right name and start exploring what are all these. Now coming to Vimanas. Vimanas comes in various shapes and sizes and structures. Okay. If you want to see what are all the possible things that are achievable in a Dravida kind of a style, come to Mahabalipuram near Chennai, where this is a university or a live experimentation on all stages of temples that is available, where they had done extensive experimentation in temple design. So the normal popular style is of a temple is to have a square base and a square top. This is one style. The second, this is experimental. All this in monolithic in a single rock they have designed it. So you have square base and a square shikara. For kids, I used to say that like this is like your shoe style and your haircut style. So if you remember that, what kind of a people normally see what kind of a shoe you wear and what kind of a hat or a hairstyle you have. So like that, the temple also has a hairstyle and a. So this is the Kuta kind of a temple where you have a square plan and you have a shaped hut. This is how old huts used to do it. This is replicated in temples. The other variation is still square plan base and a circular Amalaka type of a top. And this is one of the examples which is available in Shore Temple in Mahabalipuram. All these are monolithical rathas which are available in Mahabalipuram. So the other variation which derived from 3rd BC during the Buddha, Jaina, Chaityas and caves is the circular caves. When they did caves, the square last edge, instead of making square, they made it as a semicircular. And this design continued as an apsidal plan. So you have apsidal plan and apsidal top. You find a lot of such temples near Chennai, around 100 kilometers, and in near Badami and Chalukya areas. Square plan and polygon top. So this is the typical Dravida temple. This is a standard temple which you can find in South India. You have another one called you have a rectangular plan, and you have sala or a wagon roof kind of one. This one. So this is normally used for Vishnu temple. When it is Sayana Vishnu, he needs more space. Okay. When it is 6 into, when it is 4 into 4 for this, This might be 6 into 4 because he needs to sleep. So the width is more and it is a rectangle, and this is the design we normally follow. And another interesting thing is all your GoPros will be in this format only, no other format. All this will be in the GoPro format. So next time when you go and see, find out what kind of Vimana, what is the shape, and how many structures, and then what kind of thing. You will find so many varieties in Vimanas when you visit 5 or 6 temples. Then you will be amazed at the variety and the combination we have been developing. This is one side. Now, let us look at the varieties, the amount of idols and sculptures. So when you talk about idols and sculptures, what is the difference? When you talk about idol, what I mean is a sculpture which is energized and it is under active worship. Sculpture can be the representation of a god or any human being or any natural stuff, but it is not in worship. That is a difference. When you come into the temple, you have so many varieties of idols and sculptures and other things. And then this is where you start exploring and see where all these sculptures are there and where you can find them. The easiest place is the main idol where the main deity. Normally this will be in granite or marble or something. In South India, you can't go anywhere near that because 2 levels before that, only the authorized pujari can go and perform pujas. Okay, but in North Indian temples, they are more liberal. You can go, sit, touch the idol, and then you can perform puja and then abhishek and everything. But in South Indian, they are more traditional, and then only authorized people can go in. This is the main idol. So normally, you don't get to see the finer details of the deity because it will be always be festooned with so much of flower and everything. Sometimes when rare abhishekam or something is there, you get to know the actual beautiful sculpture of this. The next is the Utchavamurti or the touring idol. This is the god's representative, or in a client server architecture, this is the server and this is the client or the local browser equivalent. So some of the power is also festooned with him. And then this is the deity which goes around in functions, festivals, and other things out of this. Mostly the main idol is stationary, and this is the Utchavamurti or the touring idol, which is normally in metal, bronze, or something, which tours around. So people normally look at the main deity, and the people don't focus on touring idols, Utchavamurtis, which are kept on the side in some of the temples. They are beautiful bronze sculptures, and the amount of detail they have is phenomenal. Next time when you see, please spend some more time where there are not much decorations like this. You can see and enjoy the touring idols. The next one is on the temple walls. When you go, once you finish the darshan, when you come out, on 3 sides, there are different deities. There is a logic to it, and there is a rule to it, and then there is a convention to it. Just by looking at a particular deity, you can tell the direction or you can tell which way the temple is oriented. There are rules. So we will talk about it in the next session when you go into the idol section. So next time when you visit, please, when you come out, see and observe which direction, which deities are there. Then you will be able to find it out yourselves. This is not a secret. It is very easy to find out. Then there are so many sculptures on the walls, and particularly South Indian temples and North Indian temples, particularly the safer ones near Khajuraho, Orissa, or Gujarat belt. Phenomenal sculptures. There is very content. And in the Vimana, there are even in each tier, we have got so many sculptures that are depicting the story of the Puranas or some local happenings. So next time when you do darshan, sit back on what I would usually recommend is the southwest corner is ideal to look at, get the full angle, start observing the Vimana and see what all sculptures are there. You will be amazed to find that there are so many finer details which you can observe. Local stories. Here you are seeing a person, a normal 18th century person with a jibba and a dhoti or a vesti sleeping on a snake bed like a Mahavishnu. There is a story behind it. And then this is a story where this is a story of an Aryanada Mudaliyar who was uh, the the main minister during Nayaka period and who was responsible for the polygar system in their hometown. Like Vishnu, they have put a sculpture for him. Like that, there are, go to any local temple, there are so many local stories around which are there in the program. And when you look down on the fundamentals of the Adhisthana, the basement of the temple, there are so many beautiful dwarfs, swans, elephants, horses. You go to Hoysala temples, here we have only one series. Where Hoysala temple, they got 7 series. Okay, and there is a roll starting from elephant in the bottom and slowly horses and other things to the top, flowers, gods, like that. There is a panel of series things. That is a joy to watch. Miniatures. In many of these junctions, and particularly in the Tanjavur belt, there are very, very minute miniature sculptures which depict some portion of Ramayana or Mahabharata in this is the actual size. And then in some of the temples, they depict panels explaining about the Puranas, like Gadda Purana or Shiva Purana or Vishnu Damodara Purana or many of the still. This is one of the stories about Nayanar where one of the Nayanar is getting nominated. This is the Sandesha Nayanar story. Like that, in one panel, they are able to convey the entire story by giving clues. This is something, once you start exploring, you will be able to unravel so many stories from the walls. Now, coming to South Indian temples, and particularly later 14th and 18th century, Nayakas converted the pillars into the sculptures itself. So the entire pillar is a sculpture. You see so many versions of sculptures available in this. This is how you should be able to see the sculptures which are available in various places around the temple. These sculptures doesn't show only the gods. It shows creativity, actual life. See this? This is a step, just a staircase where they have ornamentally put this as the extended trunk of an elephant. There is a war scene happening. See the body and the posture of the elephant, how natural it is, as though it is in motion. So this is all we should, normally people talk and then get down the step and walk away. Only when you turn and look around this, you see this beauty. Similarly, this kind of an artifice. So if you see, this is called Rishabha Kojara. From one side, if you see this, it looks like a bull. If you see from the other side, it looks like an elephant. So there is amalgamated sculptures. This kind of sculptures gather. Interesting sculptures. This is a sculpture of an British or a European face, which is available in Tanjore Big Temple, which was built at 10th century, where we don't have any record of Europeans coming to that. That is a mystery. So how we find this kind of mystery and how we could have happened? Again, sculptures have an interesting story. This is panel about Shiva Purana, and the entire panel covers the story. And you get minute sculptures. This is in one of the Adhisthana or the foundation, where they got a beautiful floral design in the floor, in the flower, on this small area, there are minute holes where you can push a thread and come it out. That kind of minute work is there. So if you just stoop down and see, there is so much of sculptures to see. And then even drainage can be made an interesting. This is called Pomukam, where all the Abhishekam water comes in. Even that is done in an artistical way by putting dwarf as though he is holding that channel and other thing. So sculptures, if you start looking up, they start appearing everywhere. And then suddenly you are amazed that there are so many sculptures to see. Then paintings. When you walk around the temple, there are different types of paintings, different styles and colors. By looking at the paintings, you should be able to judge the period of the painting and style. And also, there are some writings from which you can understand whether it was 17th century, 8th century, 9th century. And it also conveys the local stories. This is another interesting aspect in a temple. So if you see this 6th century Chittanavasal depicts Buddhist kind of stories. Another style of paintings of Kanchi. This is during Pallava period in 8th century. This is how the paintings were. These paintings are still alive, and then we are able to see that. The third, Tanjore Big Temple, 11th century. There is a Tripurandaka panel and other panels. There is an interesting story about this. This is on the corridor around the Garbhagraha, where they were finding some MACA period, that is 17th, 18th century paintings. Some of it started peeling down, and then they were trying to restore or peel down. They took some pigments and see that there is another painting or beautiful structure behind that. Then they started removing one by one. They find the old original 11th century painting still intact. So that was a great revelation. And after 2-3 years of hard work, they cleaned everything and they restored the originals to whatever possible level. By that, we are able to see what are the paintings that are there in 11th century. There is another peek into the history and how things were at the time. Now, in the later century, there is a totally different style of painting. Madurai in Kerala kind of murals, and in 18th century, the paintings were like this. In Kanjipuram, Varadaraja temple, like that, different period. The styles were different, the structures were different, colors were different, and the stories were different. And this is how we can go into the, normally it will be on the corridor walls. You can see beautiful paintings. So people deface this by their registered numbers, their lover names, and all sorts of heartines and other things. And this is the sad story, what we are doing. The next dimension is the writing method. Before going into the question about what can last 1,000+ years, let us see how you are storing your writings. We have our iPads, notes, and other things, and all this hard disk. But the problem is, our Apple says that our products can run without 8 years or 10 years, and then we pay a princely sum, $1,500, and then buy it. And then they come up with the next upgrade in the next year and say that you dump it and buy this. So a product which can run for another 8 years is dumped, and then we go for the next upgrade. But the problem is, you have a drop or you have something, your entire memory is lost. And of course, now they say that everything is in cloud. I don't know when the cloud is going to burst and it is going to rain data. So if you look at our fathers, they were using paper, pencil, and then everything was there. The problem is the donkeys eat the paper, and the white ants eat the paper, and we also use it as a trash. So sometimes precious records get lost. Before that, if you use old guys like me, we used to write in slates. This is our recording medium. And when you, before that, people are using palm leaves in Odisha and Tamil Nadu. They are still in the habit of writing palm leaves. If you go to Odisha, the manuscriptology is a great one. Even now, when a new child is born, the one copy of the horoscope is always written in palm leaves and preserved. But again, the challenge with this is that it can last around 200 years. Okay, so every 200 years or 100 years, you need to take a copy of it and rewrite. Every time we rewrite, we add something more, some errors and other things, and then the history gets diluted. Before that, they were using wood bark and bark made parchment papers to record that. Again, that lasts for some time. But what is something where when you write a story or something, it lasts for 1,000 years without any damage and other things. Our ancestors have done it in an excellent way, and only because of that, we are able to reconstruct our history and say that Raja Raja built this temple, and Ghazni Muhammad did so many invasions, and then this is the king which built this temple. All this is possible because of the inscriptions that were done in granite thousands of years ago, which still has a mute record of the temple which was built. So this says that I, Rajaraja, built this temple. Only because of this inscription which has survived 1,000 years, we are able to. Like this, there are so many inscriptions which give the story and then stand still after 1,000 years. Where are they? Mostly in temples. This is where you should look. The next time when you go, there are so many scripts and then inscriptions and other things in a temple. So that give different stories. Okay. In Tanjavur, this entire temple, the bottom line is full of inscriptions. Like a slate, see how beautifully it is written. This is the inscription about how Rajaraja funded this temple, who are all involved in it, what type of grants he has given for this temple, who are the people who worked in it. This entire documentation is not inside the temple, it is outside the temple in open, rain, sun, and earthquake, and all these things, including our own vandalism, art in exam numbers. Still, it has survived 1,500 years, and now we are able to read this and still able to decipher it. There are like that. Each temple has got so much of history and story to tell by way of inscriptions. So next time when you go to a temple, read through in public domain. There are a lot of documentation available about the history of the temple. What are the inscriptions that are available in the temple by various things. Then, now the next question is, I know this, where I can find this. Okay, normally in olden days, the temples were made of brick and other things. So at the time, whatever inscriptions were there were held outside, and normally they are kept in display outside. They are not part of the temple construction. In later temples, you can see the inscriptions in the walls, in the pillars, and in the base of the thing, like how I showed it. And sometimes around the sculptures or the puja idols themselves, there are inscriptions, even sometimes inscriptions on the bottom on who donated this, what kind of a god it is, labeling also. So next time, please explore and see that how many inscriptions it has got, and you can also judge some popularity of the temple by the amount of inscriptions. More inscription means more popularity and then more patronage by various things. So there is another aspect which you can explore. Now we are coming to the next aspect. Now it's almost time for breakfast and then for dinner for guys in India. So temple food. Temple has got another culture of having great food. The curd rice, which are given in some other temples, have so much of variety, and then we can't have that kind of an taste or something in your normal time. Something it is blessed food. And each this is the normal ones you get there, tamarind rice or sweets or pepper pongal, and those are chili powder. When you go to North India, you get the moong dal halwa and other laddu and other prasads. This is the normal one. When it comes to heritage, each temple has got its own food offering. Like in go to Palani, they prepare a jam of 5 fruits, and then there is a major offering. That is the popular prasada there. It is a delicacy, and whoever goes to Palani, it is called Panja Amridam. Panja Amridam. This is 5 nectars done from 5 fruits. Go to Namakkal, there is an Anjaneyar temple where the main thing is the crispy vada, which they put it as a garland to the god. Kanjipuram, very famous Kanjipuram idli, and it is not like your normal idli. It is a full size idli. It is not half quarter or something. It is full size idli. Actually, it will be like this much length and then this much thickness, and a family can easily eat out. This is a full idli, and it is a totally different taste. Now, finally, we can't be completing our talk without mentioning the famous laddu from Tirupati. Even though it started in a bit late, it is a world famous thing. Whenever people go to Tirupati and come back, I said Tirupati, the first question is not, did you had good darshan? The first question people ask, have you brought laddu for me? Okay, that is the popular question. So that is the food or the offering aspect from the temple, and it has got its own heritage. So observe what is unique food in a particular temple. The temple also has festivals, colors, interaction, music, beautiful decoration. Each festival, each season has got its own story. What you see is the birthday celebration of King Rajaraja, the procession of Rajaraja Chola idol going around in a thing on 13th November, on his birthday. So like that, there are so many festivals, so many things and processions, and then this is another aspect of the temple which should be focusing on. Interestingly, temples also acted as forts and army stations. And this was primarily after the 13th, 14th centuries, where the temples become fortified walls with towns inside it and all the granary and everything, treasury inside it. They become more like a town, temple town or forts. And then whenever during British period and French and other things, war happened, people used to occupy temples and then make them as fortifications. For example, Tanjavur big temple was under occupation by French for some time, and then later on, British used it for a phenomenal period when they overpowered Marathas, and then they were using it for so many functions. Okay, now see this temple with this kind of a strong granite walls and then all parapet and all these things. This is a very good inviting, I think, for a fort. So this is how they have made it into a fort and then made it into a fortification. The proof is still there. See this? This is the GKC, sorry, the big temple where there is the fortification built during the later period with all the shooting ranges and other things. And this is how a temple has been converted into a fort. And then like in Vellore, so many things are used as forts also. You can still see remnants of they were used as the military grounds. You can see remnants of the cannons, and then a place where all the cannonballs are stored. And in the main entrance on this side, you can see that air raid protection area. So when air raid happens during World War, they have designated the Sanctum as the protection area. Safe, because no bomb can damage this. So that is how the temples were used in different aspects. Temples also figured in coins from earlier period during BC. Temples were visualized in various coins, and this is how we know how temples were evolved from various, because we don't see and then we can't see them because primarily at the time the temples were built in wood, mortar and other things, and we are not able to visualize that. This trend continues. Even now, temples are being depicted in the current thing. So another 1,000 years beyond that, people will be talking about these terms and other things where they may say that such temples existed at this point. And then they may be having a visual replica in 3D laser about these temples. So this is future history for us. So to sum up what we have seen today in various aspects, a temple is no longer now, after the session, no longer contains only the god and the prasada, okay, and a chapel sector. This also has got interesting aspects where you can see and then analyze about the Vimana and its various shapes. You can look at the ideals, what kind of ideals are there, where they are located in different areas, what type of ideals, what type of functions, and they depict the social structure at the point of time, what the dress, what the jewels and other things. And this inscriptions is the permanent record of history. Only because of this, we are able to visualize and identify so many things about the history of the temple, history of the god, history of the kings, and then local customs and all these things. The paintings also give what the social structure was there, how they visualized the gods in different places with different scenarios. And it also gives the aspect about the food and the medicine and other in terms of prasadas. So at least for a beginner or something, next time when you go to a temple, let us look around these aspects, Vimanas, ideals, sculptures, inscriptions and paintings, and then see and then explore new things about it. That is the objective of this session on how to view a temple. So this covers the basic overview of a temple so far. So what I would request the audience and the people to respond back is that in this, what are the areas we can focus for our next session? There are many areas. So ideally, if most people want about the Vimana shape, temple architecture, how it is structured, how Vimanas become from a small single cell to a grand Tanjavur temple of a structure, and that can be structured as a session. So how the next 3 sessions are going to be there, it is in your hands in the way you give feedback. So with this, I conclude the session. Sorry, I took a little long time, but the flow is complete in this way. So if you want to see something more in detail about the videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And then there are a lot of collection of old videos. It also contains a lot of curated things on various heritage topics. You can connect me in mobile or in email. And looking forward to your questions and chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Babu sir. This was very, very well done.
Thank you.
For novices like us, I think this would have been great for so many of us for this great overview. I also wanted to say that you should also see who you're impacting. You're also impacting the next generation as well.
Right. No, that is the target. That is a target which we should be looking at.
Okay. And just for the rest of the people, I wanted to say that this is only a teaser. Main picture, there is something much bigger than this. So based on your interest on what specifically you wanted to focus on, Babu sir will be able to take the next few sessions. I'm going to close up here and then I'll pass it on to Ranga. Thank you, Babu sir, again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful session. There are a few questions. I'm going to start with the Galaxy tab. I don't know who is that. They have a question about where the temples ever part of welfare state in the past. Galaxy, who is that? And can you come up and ask
Yeah,
the question?
sorry. That's me, Gayatri. Sorry, இது tabல வந்ததுனால. So ரொம்ப அழகா பேசினேன் every aspect of the temple. என்னோட question என்னன்னா, temples were they also part of welfare state? How to help people, how to say down, like, I don't know if it was ever part of the temple culture.
Interesting question. Temples, who made the temples? The people, the welfare state, and the kings who were ruling at the time. They are the major sponsors. To a certain extent, the trading community and the local community. Okay. The moment it becomes a little bigger, it is normally the state which sponsors and then which can make it into bigger and bigger. That is where when they make it bigger, the functions also get redefined and then they put a lot of things. If you see during Chola times, they had centralized administration, but regionalized collection centers. Okay. So the local authorities collect taxes, keep their share of the portion, remit the funds to the temples. Temple take their share for the maintenance, and whatever it is, either in gold or in grain or paddy, that gets frequently pushed back into the central treasury. So that is a structure. This is one aspect of the tax thing or treasury. Like that, there are so many social activities that are happening in temples. For example, Kambaramayana and all these things were launched in temples only. And then Bharatanatyam and all the dances, where it happened, all the functions in temple Mandavas only. Because that's why the Mandavas were done in such a way that there are pillars and there are no walls. Whatever dance is happening, you can see from outside, from other performance also. So like that, there were medicinal things. There are lot of inscriptions where temples were also running Veda Padasalas, and then they were running medicinal centers, and then they had a list. There is a temple in Mukudal near Kanjipuram, which lists what is the basic level of medicines that has to be kept as a buffer during every day. The inscriptions go to that level. So there were part of state. Hope it answered your question, Gayatri.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Vairam has got a question.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hi, Veram. How are you? After a long time seeing you. Nice.
Yes, sir. Long time.
Yeah.
So this is a one question I usually ask Vijay Kumar, sir, but again, I am posing it to you here. So apart from Salavankuppam and periods like that, where we have at least known there were sort of temple structures. The temple structure as we know, or the Dravida architecture as we know, what would be the earliest structures? Is it in the Pallava period or it is only in Chola period?
No, obviously Pallava is earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Even during earlier times, even from Silapadikaramam, Manimeghale, they are talking about various types of temples and temples made of brick, wood, and other things. Okay. There are a lot of references about temples. Okay. Unfortunately, they are made of wood and timber, where its expiry date is maximum 200 years or 100 years, depending on the brittleness, and then it goes. This is if you leave this. Suppose if there is a attack, it requires only one torch to finish off the temple, because wooden. So that is how it happened. That's why now the interesting question is, we don't have the other question, which I would say that you have so many temples, but no palaces available, because palaces were normally built on wood and other things. And the moment you lose the control and somebody else invades, it requires a touch. The entire palace is finished. So that temples we are not able to find, but even in old coins and old Pandya coins, we have seen some replica of temple-like structure. That is what Shankarnarayan is. So we have evidences from Pandya period itself on some shape of the temples that are there at the point of time. If you go to any of the Sanchi and other stupas, they depict so many designs of temples. All the shapes I showed there, all the shapes are there in Sanchi stupa or our nearby Amaravati stupa, where all these the types are already there in the structure. So what is a temple? It is nothing but a dignified extension of the current building style of the particular structure.
So can we deduce Buddhist were building on stones much earlier than the Hindu temple structures were in other forms? Because
this is a little controversial question, and actually mostly around 3rd, 4th century, when you see the latest Sanchi temple and other things, there were constructed temples, but they were fairly rudimentary. Okay, it is room plus something. That is where the oldest temple example there is situated, and because there have been some Hindu temples. Primarily, we are not getting the earliest temple happens to be that. So this is probability of history. So later period, we may find some Hindu temple buried, which may date up to 3rd century something. But mostly the design of doing structured stone block temples came a little later. Till such time, people are still having their original primordial affiliation towards caves, and then trying to convert everything to a cave instead of converting them into buildings.
One other observation, probably not a question. So off late, I've been researching on Indian lamps, and I went through all the art and architecture of the Bronze Age civilizations in Mesopotamia and later Greek ages. I see great influence of Mesopotamian art and Greek art in Chola temples than anywhere else, especially the horses, the serpents, the snake, naga related inscriptions. These are exact match to, like, literally replica of what is found in Bronze Age Mesopotamia, Elam, Susa, and some of the horse sculptures, especially our horses in the pillars. They are found in BMAC and Greek areas, especially with griffins and like literally the same one. So I'm seeing a lot of Greek sudden out of nowhere, a sudden Greek influence and Mesopotamian influence in Chola sculptures, which is not there in Pallava or any part of India, and it is suddenly booming in Chola period. I do not know why.
Okay, it's an interesting observation. This again validates the point that sculptures also do tell a story. A classical example for this is the Avudiyar Koil in near Karaikudi. You go to there, it will give you the maximum collection of horses in sculptures. All different varieties. You can actually map the particular genus of the horse by looking at the. So people have done research on that. I think you might have also explored that. This is primarily because they have not done imagination. At the time that various breeds were being imported into Pandya as well as Chola army, they didn't only import horses, okay, for feeding them. They were also, the Arabs are drinking baobab trees. The big Bondan, they call it as Bondan Puli in Tamil Nadu. There's a big tree where it is a wide one. Okay, there, interestingly, you find these seeds only in area around Madurai, Rameswaram, where the shore is. The other area where you can find is in the Orissa coast near Puri. These are the two major centers during the earlier time where horse trade and other things were happening. Arabian trades were there. This is where they have seen the horses and then they have sculptured it. You go to Konark in the 13th century temple, in this one panel, there is a giraffe, which was gifted to King Narasimha by the Arab traders, and then it figures in one of the panels. So by looking at the sculptures, we can find so much about the trade, culture, and everything. This is something which I have reserved for the sculpture session. Now that we have talked, we have covered it. Let us cover a little more detail in the sculpture session. Actually, there are people out there, everybody can contribute, and this is how we can make this as a live session. Thank you, Veeram, for pointing out this.
Next question from Hemant. Probably that will be the last question. Because rest of the questions we can add. Hemant?
Sure. I think Gayatri was also raising her hand, just so you know. But I can go first. I had a couple of questions, Babu sir. So first, I'm going to read it out. So basically, all of the South Indian temples that exist today were constructed, even if you were to take any of the old temples like Rajarajeshwaram or Brihadarishwara temple, or even prior to that, all of them are based on Agamas. And how about the Sangha Kalam time temples? How were they? How were they constructed, and how was the layout different in these temples? So in the recent past, I visited Saluvankupam, the one that Veeram was mentioning, Saluvankupam temple near Mahabalipuram. And it looked a bit different than a typical temple. So if you could shed some light on that, that would be great. The differences between Agama, temples based on Agamas versus the much earlier ones.
What is an Agama? Agama is nothing but an empirical formula on how to build temples based on some experimentation and some known principles, and to a certain extent based on divinity and what I would say, the mapping or transforming visualization to a form and the calculation. That is Agama. Okay, you have a visualization, you see that Vishnu will be like this, then next you transform them into Vishnu means so much tall, and then so much ratio, he will have these weapons, and then this is the ratio between shoulder and this one. When it go to Ganapati, the ratio between head and body is different. His tummy ratio is different, like that. This is where from the mind to the visualization, it gets into solidity and goes into calculation. Okay, this is the components of an Agama. Okay, primarily this is an evaluation primarily from the way it is, and then we find some codified Agamas, proper Agamas, structured Agamas in Kamika Agama, and from that period onward, that is from the 6th century. If you see the later period Agamas, the Agamas keeps on defining based on experience. For example, when you talk about the foundation types, Kamika Agama talks about 4 types. Next level, later 10th century Agamas talks about 12 types. Later period Agamas talks about 64 combinations of the foundation based on the various things. So these are evolving rules and then defining empirical formulas. So whatever is that rule at the point of time, they follow. For example, there is a rule about base to the temple to the height of the temple. That is mentioned in Agamas. But they are giving a range. Chola period, they took the broadest range, and then their gopuras were like this, big and then little small. Whereas you go to Vijayanagara period, same Agama, same rules, they applied it in a different way. They had very narrow base, and then they made it very tall. So that is based on the period, how they are interpreting the building science at that point of time. This is like building science and rules. Hope I answered your question. Talking about Saruvankuppa Murugan temple, that is not in line with the Kamika or any of, because the orientation and other things are slightly different. Okay, that might be the convention that was followed at the time. See, when we talk about Saruvankuppa, there are two temples. One is a very base layer, is a Sanctum period, old period kind of an tiles, which are in line with the tiles we are getting on excavation, which are dated to 6th or 7th century BCE or 5th or 6th BCE. So by that we say that there is a Sanctum temple base. On top of it, whatever structure you see is the 5th or 6th century brick and mortar temple built by Pallavas and their ancestors. Only the foundation below that is the earlier Sanctum period. The construction you see is the Pallava period construction. Hope this answered your query.
You did, yeah. Thanks, sir. I have one more. Even during my childhood, I was always fascinated by Surangapade. I think I remember this was probably in Madurai Meenakshi temple, I think. The very first time I saw a place where it was forbidden. You couldn't go after a particular point. They would say that there is a Surangapade after this point, but they would not let you go there. And I was very curious, and even right now I'm very curious to know if you have been to any of such places. Have you been to a treasury, a temple treasury in the past? Or do we know how these existed in the past?
Even though I work for a treasury, but my treasury exposure was limited to bank. Okay, I was a dealer in foreign exchange in a bank. In a way, I have seen the treasury, but not the temple treasury. Okay, see, normally this will be next to the sanctum or somewhere here, and big temples like this, it will be there are some normal things. There are some separate areas, and then even in an emergency, when you bury idols, the Agamas or later period renovation, they say that how to bury an idol. You need to put so many layers of sand, put the idol with the face looking at the bottom, and then put one more layer of sand like that. Some flowers and then sand and other things, so that the features doesn't get changed. So that is the level of detail they give, and definitely there are certain underground passages and other things, primarily to exit to the earliest possible thing. Okay, but our story is our guys, and particularly our guides in the temples, they freak out like anything, and then they say that there is a underground passage from Trichy to Tanjavur. If they find it, we can run a metro rail from Tanjavur to Trichy, and you can reach there in 25 minutes. Like that, there are so many stories, and people say that from Mahabalipuram there is an underground link to Kanjipuram. Okay, if you find that, then we have our next national highway. Okay, so all these things, people have imagination, and the people have very good, interesting thing, and the imaginative power. The same story with Konark also. They got so many stories about it that it has become a legend on its own. Thank you. That is an interesting point, and I hope I was able to clear some misconceptions or gaps on this. Thank you.
Vijaya Mami, உங்களுக்கு question இருக்குதா?
இப்போ அதேதான் அதான் இப்போ தமிழ்ல பேசலாம் இல்லையா? இப்போ
தாராளமா தமிழ்ல பேசலாம்.
அதான் இப்போ நீங்க சொன்னீங்களே இப்ப அந்த ஒரே ஒரு இதுதான் எனக்கு டக்குன்னு அப்பவே சொல்லணும்னு நினைச்சேன், நினைவு வந்தது. அந்த அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ் அது இப்போ இருக்கு, இன்னமும் அந்த இடம் கொஞ்சம் மூடி வச்சிருக்கா, என்ன இதுவா இல்லை. அது கும்பகோணத்துக்கு பக்கத்துல அங்கிருந்து ஒரு 5 மைல் தூரத்துல திருவெச்சநல்லூர்னு ஊர் இருக்கு. அது எங்களோட பழைய காலத்து ஊரு. அந்த கிராமத்துல சிவயோகிநாதர் டெம்பிள்னு இருக்கு. அந்த கோவில்ல இருந்து அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ் தஞ்சாவூர் அரண்மனை மட்டும் இருக்குமா. கும்பகோணம்
எவ்வளவு
அந்த
கிலோமீட்டர் மொத்தம்?
அது வந்து எத்தனை ஒரு 20-30 கிலோமீட்டர் இருக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். மைல்ல தான் அப்ப தெரிஞ்சது,
சரி.
தெரியல. அது வந்து அந்த
ம்.
அந்த இடத்துல இருந்து அப்ப அங்க கோவிலுக்கு போனா சொல்லுவா, அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ் இருந்தது. ராஜராஜ சோழன் அந்த அங்க அவ ரூல் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறச்சு. இந்த சிவயோகிநாதர் டெம்பிள்ல இருந்து அந்த கோவில் ரொம்ப புராதன கோவில். அந்த இது கூட அதுல நிறைய இந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்கள்லாம் இருக்கு. அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ் வச்சுட்டு அவ ராணி கூட அப்படியே வருவா தரிசனம் பண்ண அப்படின்னு
இப்ப நான் ஒரே ஒரு
சொல்லியிருக்காரு. அதை
கேள்வி
கேட்டிருக்கேன் கேட்டிருக்கேன்.
ஒரு ராஜராஜ சோழன் வந்து அவர் ராணியை 30 கிலோமீட்டர் நடத்தி அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ்ல
இல்ல நடந்து போனாடா எப்படின்னு
முதல் பள்ளி
தெரியாது,
ராஜராஜா தான் போட்டு தள்ளிடுவாங்க.
தெரியல. ஏதோ வழி இருக்குன்னு சொல்லுவா, தெரியல.
அது வந்து எப்பவுமே
தெரியல.
என்னன்னா,
ஆமா.
ஆமா இது என்னன்னா பிராக்டிகலா பார்க்கணும். நம்ம
ம்.
வெளியே எஸ்கேப் ஆகணும்னா கொஞ்சம் தூரம் நடந்து அவங்க எதிர்கண்ணுல படுறதுக்கு முன்னாடி சைலண்டா
ஆமா.
போறதுன்னா
ஆமா. ஆமா.
அது தாண்டி வந்தாச்சுன்னா
தெரியும்.
தட் இஸ் நாட் த ப்ரிஃபர்டு மோட் ஆஃப் வாக்கிங். ஒரு மனுஷனால 30 கிலோமீட்டர் அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட்
தெரியல. அது ஆக்சுவலா எவ்வளவு தூரம் தெரியல எனக்கு. கும்பகோணம் டு தஞ்சாவூர் அந்த மயில்ல தான்
ஒரு அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் பேசேஜ் போகணும்னா அதுக்கு பிரீத்திங் இது வந்து இப்ப நீங்க அண்டர் கிரவுண்ட் ட்ரெயின் போறீங்கன்னா எவ்ரி 200 meters there is a hole, breathing hole and other things. So ஒரு இடத்துல 4 இடத்துல அந்த பிரீத்திங் ஹோல் மூடியாச்சுன்னா ராஜராஜா சமாதி அங்கேயே போயிடும். அவர் எங்க இறந்தாலும் கண்டுபிடிக்க முடியல அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு யூடியூப்ல நிறைய சேனல்ல நிறைய கதை போட்டுட்டு இருப்பாங்க.
கரெக்ட், அப்படி சொல்லி கேட்டிருக்கேன். அதுதான் கேட்கணும்.
நான் சொல்றதெல்லாம் இதெல்லாம் பிராக்டிகலா பாருங்க. ராஜராஜா வந்து அங்கிருந்து வெளியே வந்து எஸ்கேப் ஆறதுக்கு 2 கிலோமீட்டர் தாண்டி அவருக்கு வேலையை ஏன்னா 2 கிலோமீட்டர் தாண்டி அகல கீழே தாண்டி வெளியே வந்தாச்சுன்னா குதிரையில ஃபாஸ்டா ஓடி போயிடலாம். தப்பிச்சு போறதுக்கு பெஸ்ட் வழி குதிரை தான். So look at the practicality and put your think like Rajaraja, then you will find that my wife is going to kill me. பின்னாடி வந்து 30 கிலோமீட்டர் வாமா அப்படியே ஜாலியா நடந்து போயிடலாம் அப்படின்னா முதல்ல அவருக்கு தான்.
அதாவது என்ன அதுன்னு தெரியல.
சொல்லி practical thing. You can look at this. மிக்க நன்றி. எனவே இந்த மாதிரி கேள்வி கேக்குறப்பதான் வந்து
அப்ப தெரிஞ்சுக்கலாம்.
feel free to ask questions.
ஆமா.
ஓகே, இப்போ அரௌண்ட் 10 o'clock in India.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions illana we will continue the session next Saturday.
Next Saturday might be little tight. We can probably reschedule it a little later. Okay, what I would see is I would like some feedback about the session. Was it covering your interest and other things, and suggestion on what we want to cover, and probably we'll give 1 week breather time where people can go through the session again, and then it is covered wider audience, so that next time we see more and more people into this. That will be more helpful.
Yeah.
Practically, from a personal front, I have some personal commitment. My son's marriage is coming up, so next 2 weeks and 3 weeks. 2 weeks at least I am tied up.
Okay, agreed.
Jay.
Yeah, we will. I mean, we'll announce the next session when after syncing up with Babu sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
But before that, your feedback.
Yeah, we will.
And interest will help us in customizing the content.
Yeah, we will communicate and get the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really. I really thank the audience who got up early on a Saturday morning, and in spite of the severe winter time there, and then getting up and attending this call and looking so fresh and interesting, that is really excited me to go for little more time and then extend this talk, and definitely very good participation. Thank you for that. And
thank you,
thanks,
Thank you,
Ranga and Hemant for a good organization. Looking any questions on that, you can always ping me, and you can take it offline. Thank you. Have a nice day and
so
enjoy
much,
your week.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, sir, I wanted to know what group is this working? I can join from here to them.
Yeah. Who's this? Sorry.
Babu sir, Alkesh here.
Okay, Alkesh.
Alkesh.
Yes.
Yeah, let me introduce Alkesh. Alkesh, can you come on video, please?
Okay, 1 second, sir. Namaskar to all.
Okay. This is Alkesh Zaveri. He is from East Coast, operating out of New Jersey. He is also a heritage enthusiast like me. His passion is on Gajalakshmi, not the lady Gajalakshmi, the god Gajalakshmi. Okay. So he collects Lakshmi and its transformation into various aspects. And he has got a huge collection, and his passion is on Lakshmi evaluation and how it is represented in various aspects. This talk, Alkesh, is hosted from Toronto for the heritage enthusiasts in the Canada region. And they approached us through Hemant for doing a 4-part presentation on temples and how to see a temple and how to look at different aspects of temple. So that is the context. What happened is I have shared this in some of the groups, interest groups in India, and some
Yeah,
of
I
the
saw, but
participants
today
may
was
be from
very much
India.
snowing
That's
here,
how
so I could not get
Alkesh
up early.
came into this.
It is snowing so
One of
hard
these days,
outside.
yeah, we can also have a session by Alkesh on Lakshmi and how it is represented. Maybe at a later point of time, somewhere around the Lakshmi Puja time. That will be a very good time for the Diwali time.
Yeah, over to you.
Thank you,
Hemant.
Alkesh.
Yeah, yeah. We will
Thank
get
you.
in touch with you, Alkesh. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Babu sir can give my number and everything.
Yeah,
We
sure.
guys can be in touch with us.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Namaskar.
Thank you.
thank you.
Have a nice weekend.
Namaskar.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.